This is KGW News at noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brenda Braxton. Chaotic protests in Portland show no signs of slowing 3 months after the death of George Floyd in Minnesota and days after the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. Here in the Rose City overnight, 150 people took aim at City Hall. They spray painted the building, smashed windows and glass doors, and tried to light fires. Police arrested 23 adults and 2 teenagers. Protesters originally planned to go to the Juvenile Detention Center in Northeast Portland last night, but Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kafoury urged them to consider the kids who were there and the trauma they've already experienced. The center is also a live-in shelter for kids at risk, so protesters say they changed their plans. 22 times this summer, police have declared riots at these protests, and many nearby neighbors say they've had enough. As Catherine Cook reports, Oregon's governor took to Twitter calling for an end to the violence and vandalism.
All persons must immediately disperse to the west.
For months, protesters have, on many nights, targeted the Portland Police Union headquarters on North Lombard. They've set fires and committed vandalism. Often, police have responded with tear gas. It's all taking a toll on neighbors.
It feels like we're living in war.
Marta Huembes has lived here for more than 20 years. She's a proud immigrant, organizer, and supports the Black Lives Matter movement. She does not support the destructive behavior she's witnessed here or those responsible for it.
To begin with, I think that they need to look at themselves in the mirror and see how privileged they are.
On Monday night, police once again declared a riot as a crowd of hundreds targeted the empty Union building. Some set fires outside the building. Others pulled chain-link fences into the street, blocking traffic. Police arrested 25 people and fired tear gas into the crowd. Neighbor Gus Stewart got a whiff of it.
Yeah, I definitely don't like that being so close to the neighborhood.
He's ready to see it all end.
I absolutely am on the side of the peaceful protesters, but I don't understand how the violence helps that message. I also don't think those people are truly a part of that, the Black Lives Matter movement.
These signs talk about tear gas from police, but neighbors tell us they're also tired of the smoke from fires set by protesters and the noise that's keeping their families up, in some cases till 4 in the morning.
We're not able to sleep, either if the riots are here or if they're not. Still, we're under tension if they're coming or if they're not coming.
Police say Monday marked the 22nd night a riot has been declared since protests began in late May. Police Chief Chuck Lavelle says the protests are impacting Bureau resources and response time. He says when protests end, officers are still on the clock.
When this dissipates at night at 1, 2 in the morning, they're back out answering calls for service. So the same folks that are getting pelted with rocks and mortars, they're the same ones that, brush their uniforms off and go take the welfare check, go see about the domestic violence victim and things of that nature.
On Tuesday, Governor Kate Brown tweeted this: "Let me be clear. It's time for the violence and vandalism to end so Portland can focus on the important work to be done to achieve real change and racial justice. Those who have committed acts of violence will be held accountable." How and when that will happen is unclear, but to Marta, this much is certain.
We're dealing with 2 viruses, with the COVID-19, and the other one is racism. And by doing this, it's not going to make a difference to me.
In North Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
In Wisconsin, 2 people were shot to death and another wounded during protests last night over the police shooting of 29-year-old Jacob Blake. Police say the shooter was seen on cell phone video opening fire in the middle of the street with a rifle. The suspect, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse from Illinois, has been arrested. In the meantime, Blake's family is demanding that the officers involved in Sunday's shooting be fired and the one who shot him in the back be arrested.
We keep saying this after every tragedy. We can't have a justice system for Black America and one for white America. We have to have a justice system for everybody.
Blake was unarmed and shot at least 7 times in the back. He survived but is paralyzed from the waist down. The Justice Department is now helping state authorities investigate. Wisconsin's Department of Justice says the officers are on administrative leave and fully cooperating. The Republican National Convention continues tonight with Vice President Mike Pence arguing President Trump deserves 4 more years. He's making that speech outside Washington, D.C., and that is causing some controversy. NBC's Tracy Potts has more.
Our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Patriotism, that's Republicans' focus tonight as Vice President Mike Pence accepts his nomination from historic Fort McHenry in Baltimore amid criticisms of political events on public property. Last night, it was First Lady Melania Trump from the White House aiming to win swing state female voters.
He's not a traditional politician. He doesn't just speak words. He demands action and he gets results.
Mr. Trump praised by 2 of his children.
It is a fight that only my father can win.
My father has made me believe that America can truly be great again.
His chief economic advisor crediting the president for one area where he continues to dominate the polls.
Americans are going back to work. There's a housing boom, there's an auto boom, a manufacturing boom, a consumer spending boom. Stocks are in record territory.
The president popped up twice on video in a naturalization ceremony and pardoning a convicted felon in Nevada.
I can't tell you how grateful I am.
As Democrats projected COVID numbers outside the RNC's auditorium, the night's sharpest attack on Joe Biden came from former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Democrats have been lecturing America about integrity for 4 years, while their nominee has been writing the textbook on abuse of power for 40 years.
Biden's campaign quoting media calling Bondi's claims a fountain of falsehoods. In these speeches, we're hearing about crime and the economy, not so much specifically about the president's pandemic response. The First Lady mentioned it, so did the chief economic advisor, but it wasn't a big focus. Could be tonight because the vice president who's speaking is in charge of that response. Tracy Potts, NBC News, Washington.
During last night's speeches, there were some claims made about the president's first term. And like we did with the DNC last week, we have our Verify team fact-checking the conventions. Here's Jason Puckett.
Let's start tonight with a claim from Cissy Graham Lynch, the granddaughter of evangelist Billy Graham.
President Trump became the first president to talk about the importance of religious freedom at the United Nations.
This is false. President Trump did talk about religious freedoms at the United Nations in 2019, but he was not the first president to do so. We searched past presidents' addresses to the United Nations and found that President Obama, Bush Jr. and Sr., and Ronald Reagan all talked directly about religious freedoms at the United Nations. Next, a claim from Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump.
My father, on the other hand, delivered the largest tax cuts in American history.
This claim is false. According to data and analysis by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Ronald Reagan's 1981 tax cut holds the title as largest. They took congressional budget data and adjusted it for inflation. President Trump's 2017 tax cut was the 12th largest as a percent of gross domestic product and the 4th largest in real dollars. And finally, a claim from President Trump himself. He didn't speak directly tonight, but he made this statement in a video clip.
The women's unemployment rate had plummeted to the lowest level in more than 65 years. And last year, over 70% of the new jobs went to women.
This claim is true. President Trump said this quote while signing a proclamation on the anniversary of the 19th Amendment last week. Federal Reserve economic data shows that in late 2019 and early 2020, women's unemployment had dropped to its lowest level since 1953, about 65 years. And data published by the White House and Bureau of Labor Statistics show that there were about 2.1 million jobs added in 2019. 1.5 million of those went to women. That's about 70%. Folks, there's more from both nights of the RNC up on our website. If you have more claims or questions you want us to look into, send us an email. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
And you can watch full coverage of the RNC's third night right here on KGW. It gets underway at 7 o'clock. Now to our coronavirus coverage. Yesterday, Oregon reported 247 new COVID cases and 7 more deaths. Infections are declining, but health experts warn all of us to avoid large gatherings, especially with Labor Day less than 2 weeks away. They say we can all take action to make the long weekend safer.
Maybe it's wearing face coverings inside, even at a family member's house that isn't your own household. Maybe it's inviting less people over for that fabulous barbecue or those ribs and salad that you're going to have.
Governor Brown says if the numbers don't come down by the end of the month, she will impose new restrictions. Can you guys believe we are in the middle of the last week of August? We want to give you this live look from our Wells Fargo camera. And our forecast has been an absolute treat over the last couple of days. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri is here with more on that fantastic weather.
Man, it's incredible. And if you're going to get a chance to enjoy it, it's not just going to be sticking around for today. It's going to be here tomorrow, Friday, and Friday is going to be the best day of the work week, and it sticks around for the weekend as well. Let's take you out to the Oregon coast. This is a gorgeous shot. Earlier during the sunrise show this morning, Brenda, you might recall it was overcast skies. Well, that's not the case right now. We're looking at clear skies, temperatures in the low 60s already, and the winds are pretty light coming in from the northwest, and throughout wine country already in the mid 70s. I think the sweet spot temperature wise is right around the upper 70s to low 80s, and that's basically what we're going to be seeing throughout much of the metro area later on this afternoon. A little bit cooler from what you have been seeing over the Dalles, a temperature of 80 degrees. You could easily see highs getting close to that 90 degree mark later on this afternoon, but we stay sunny and warm the entire week. Again, Friday will be a little bit warmer as highs get close to the upper 80s to maybe a few spots flirting with that 90 degree mark. And then expect to see conditions really just stay stable over the next few days throughout the west side of the state. East side of the state still going to be picking up some thunderstorm activity throughout Bend and Redmond later on this afternoon and into tomorrow. And coming up in the detailed forecast, Brenda, I'll talk more about your local forecast, but also Hurricane Laura, that is now a Category 4 storm. It starts to make landfall late tonight and into early tomorrow morning.
All right, lots to talk about. We'll see you in a little bit. Thank you, Joe.